Dreams, premonitions, and gut feelings are all attempts of the unconscious to guide you. That's a quote from David Ogilvy, who is the godfather of advertising. And let me preface this first by saying I am a believer that the logical mind and the intuitive mind are supposed to work together. They are supposed to be in harmony, and that they're two sides of the same coin. Rather than working each other, they actually should be fused together. So signs, coincidences, premonitions, are they attempts of the divine? Are they divine transmission that are guiding your way through life? Or could you just chalk the whole angel numbers thing up to girls who drink matcha and get 555 tattooed on them? But in this video, I'm going to break down to you the logical thinking behind why signs, synchronicities, and coincidences are actually something that can help you and guide you. And they're not just acts of delusion, and they're not just things that you're trying to get yourself to see. So going back to what I said, some people rely solely on logic and some people rely solely on intuition. But the truth is, they're both coming from the same source. They've just been fragmented. So the top 1% of performers, the highest performers in the world, have learned how to integrate both of them. And that's because reality is always speaking to you, and you are always speaking back to it. The 1% understand, and they make the mental shift that it's not a sermon, it's an ongoing dialogue. It's a conversation between you and what you want. Call it the higher source, call it God, call it the universe. But just remember, it acts as a soundboard. I touched on this on my last video, but something I had to learn the hard way is that the universe is neither friendly nor is it hostile. It is simply responsive. Because think about it, if it was friendly, then we would have world peace. If it was evil, then we would have a world war all the time. But you can find pockets of both on different corners of the planet. And that's simply because those corners correspond to the level of consciousness that is present, or the current level of thinking that is present in those areas. It is simply responding to what is being fed. So whatever the dominant mode of perception is in your current reality, in your current world, in your current environment, it will directly correlate and translate to how you experience reality. So why do I say that coincidence is actually the universe's way of speaking to you? Because what you call coincidence is actually design. Think about every coincidence that you've ever had or experienced, and then backtrack through the sequence of events that had to occur in order for that coincidence to happen. Whether it's thinking about a friend and them calling, whether it was being in the right place at the right time. When you use that logic to break down those coincidences, you realize that there are no coincidences. What appears as randomness on one level is actually ordered on another level. And as Steve Jobs said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can learn to connect them looking backwards. When you look backwards, order is revealed and it almost feels divine. And that's when it was always meant to be this way, epiphany kicks in for people. So let's talk about synchronicity. I think it's a touchy subject because I think, like manifestation, spirituality, is kind of been leaned on as a crutch. Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence. But that's the thing, a meaningful coincidence is subjective because what is meaningful to one is not meaningful to another. So what is ignored by you but is noticed by me might just be an everyday occurrence. And that's where I'd categorize something like angel numbers. But then there are events that defy logic itself, that occur in just a split second, and had you looked somewhere else or had you not been in that place in that time, it would have happened to you. Something that felt like the universe had orchestrated that event to happen for you. And that's happened countless times for me, from meeting people that are eventually going to be on my show, through to being at random dinners I had no business being at, but walking out with an idea that shaped and changed the trajectory of my life. I am always, when I use my logic, realize that there are no chances, and this is all too perfectly designed for that to be left a chance. However, this is where most people go wrong and they fall too far into the pit. When synchronicity becomes a crutch that you're leaning on and you're constantly on the search for signs in order to validate that you're on the right path, you've gone too far. When the shift turns outward instead of inward, which is the whole point of the signs and signals, they're only supposed to point you inward, then you've fallen off the path, or you've fallen out of alignment. Deepak Chopra says that alignment is your natural state of being. And when it's your natural state of being, synchronicity becomes a daily occurrence, so it shouldn't surprise you anymore. For me personally, it's actually rare that a synchronistic event doesn't happen, or I don't see something that is tied to something I was thinking about earlier, or a premonition about something in the future. And I genuinely think that is the art of awareness. That's the art of raising your awareness to the point you're tuned into the frequency in which we're supposed to live in, because the world is designed to actually help you and push you forward, but it's just that you're probably not looking. Those signs and signals to me only affirm that I'm actually in a coherent state of mind. They don't mean anything further. And as long as I continue to stay there, then things will continue to flow. When attachment becomes involved, and I have a whole video on detachment if you want to go check that out, that is when frustration arises because expectations are attached to attachment. But removing yourself from expectation and removing yourself from attachment and using synchronicities and not letting them use you is how you continue to operate from flow states. And this is what the 1% do. But seeing and noticing a synchronicity or coincidence and acknowledging it is just level 1. Knowing what to do thereafter is where most people fall apart. See, perception allows you to notice, but only action allows you to engage with it. For instance, you've probably had moments where you said yes to go to a spontaneous dinner or a spontaneous meeting, and something actually came out of it. And in the moment, you feel really grateful and you're feeling like, oh, this is something that's going to change my life. But then weeks go by and nothing happens. And then you convince yourself that it just wasn't meant to be. But what's really happened there? You haven't interpreted the event to actionable next steps. And this is why I think logic and intuition are two sides of the same coin, because whilst intuition allows you to perceive an event and perceive an opportunity, it's only logic that's going to allow you to deduce it down into actionable steps. Going back to the opening quote here, that dreams, premonitions, and gut feelings are your unconscious guidance, Ogilvy also used to find inspiration for his advertisements in his dreams and in his premonitions. So it was his logic that allowed him to turn that insight into action. That is the art of co-creation. That is the art of co-authorship. Your intuition and training your awareness invites synchronicity and coincidence, and then logic allows you to make sense of it and then turn it into meaningful progress. When you actually learn to do this, your life, your business, your relationships, whatever it may be, your health, transforms forever. This is literally the process I walk my one-to-one clients through, who keep hitting barriers that don't allow them to scale past 6 or 7 figures, or they can't optimize their daily routines, or they're having limiting beliefs that are stopping them from scaling. By the way, if you want help with any of that, then click the first link below. I put a secret video together. You can go and watch that. Apply if you're a right fit. You know what to do. I'll message you. But anyway, that begs the question, how do you hear when reality is speaking to you? Again, it's simply a matter of awareness, hence the cap. When you learn to pay attention again, you'll begin to notice the signs and synchronicities and signals that were always there. And you can even test this in scenarios when you're with friends who don't train their awareness, and you notice something and you notice them not notice it. For instance, when I was in New York a couple of months ago, I went up to a rooftop in Soho in order to film a video, and a guy followed me up the stairs and he said to me, oh, I just followed you because it looked like you knew where you were going. I didn't know if he meant in that moment or if he meant in life, but either way, I got to speaking to him. And he told me that he used to work in corporate until he found his true calling, which is in another field. I think it was writing. And he said that he was constantly getting signs and signals that he should be in this other career path. For years on end, his family was stressed. He was losing his health. He hit countless dead ends in his work. It kind of forced him to entertain this new idea. And the moment he did, everything shifted for him. All of those problems reversed. And he had this whole new lease on life. And the one line he said to me to summarize it, which is the reason I believe we met, is, I wish I learned to pay attention earlier. See, that affirmed to me that you are always getting signal. It's just a matter of you are tuned into the interference and not to the actual signal. See, most people are focused on the noise, and that's why their lives and business become a product of that noise. Scattered, focused, unintentional, but then the moment you tune into the actual signal and you remove the interference, you become focused, intentional, and clear-minded again. And there are countless ways to tune back into the signal, whether it's journaling, meditation, saunas, sprints. It doesn't matter what the medium or the conduit is, as long as you just actually do it, because that is the thing that is going to shift you and help shift you back into awareness. If you feel scattered and lost in your life right now, it's likely that you're tuned into the interference and into the noise and not into the signal, because the signal is always clear. So it's a case of practicing every day. Just like you go to the physical gym, you also need to go to the mental gym to train your awareness. But what happens is the more you begin to do this, the more you begin to notice what's blocking you, what patterns you keep repeating, and you finally open yourself up to those coincidences and synchronicities that the universe or the world or the reality is always sending to you. The more you practice, the more life itself becomes a practice. And then connecting the dots becomes a lot easier when you're tuned into signal and not interference. You're trying to connect dots from interference. That's why it feels scattered. That's why it feels unfocused and unintentional. And this isn't just a woo-woo spirituality mindset concept. I understand that it can come across that way, especially to logical thinkers, but think about it this way. When elite performers are in flow states that are in complete surrender to their mind, they don't have to rely on willpower or discipline, because it becomes a way of being. It's not just a productivity hack. So as much as reality is always speaking to you through signs and synchronicities and coincidences, your mind is also always speaking to you through your own unconscious patterns and loops. On every level you are being helped, but you have to ask yourself, am I missing the calls? See, high performance isn't just about calculation, or else everybody would be able to do it. Calculation is often miscalculated because you're not accounting for the data that you just can't see yet. But once you tune back in and you account for that in the equation, that's when you get exponential results. That's when you operate from flow and not force. That's when your business grows, not because your actions are forced, but because you're aligned and not desperate. That's when your mind becomes an instrument and not a weapon that is used against you. So what you might be writing off as coincidence at this current moment, or if you feel like you don't even ever experience them, understand that reality is always helping you. Understand that there's a lot more data underneath to unpack that is waiting for you to unravel it and turn it into something. You as the alchemist can extract meaning from the ordinary and the mundane and the boring, and spin it into something extraordinary if you choose to. So the question is, will you tune into it? Will you use your logic and intuition like the top 1% of peak performers do? Or will you continue to live in the noise? P.S. I just wrote a 10-chapter book on exactly how to do this. It's how to uncover your mental loops. It's how to install the execution systems of the top 1%. It's how to tap into peak performance and master flow states. Everything is covered inside that book and I don't hold back. It's called the Self-Mastery Playbook and it's available on the first link below. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe to this and go and watch this video here if you want to learn how to make a practical shift in your life. And once you make this shift, similar related to awareness, then everything will change for you.